Today we're going to take a look at percent of change. The goal is by the end of the video that you can use proportions to solve percent of change problems. So let's say your parents ask you if you want a 10% change in your allowance. What would you say? Hopefully you would say, wait a minute, are we talking about a 10% increase or a 10% decrease? Because that matters, right? We want to know if it's going up or if it's going down. What we're going to look at today is how we can use the proportion that we've been working with to figure out the percent that something is changing. And so first let's start with our definition here. Percent of change is the percent that a certain amount is increasing or decreasing by. And so we can use our standard proportion we've been working with. You'll see this looks really familiar to a lot of the other ones that we've been using. We have our amount of change right here over our original, and then we're talking about our percent of change out of 100. One thing that you may want to add to your notes page is over change. Where we're getting this number from is we're taking our new amount and we're subtracting our original. Okay, and that'll make more sense as we go. But you take your new amount, subtract the original amount from it, and that's going to tell you how much it's going up or down by. And then you put that over the original starting amount to figure out what percent of the original that would be. All right, let's try a first question. Last year, a school had 632 students. This year, the school has 670 students, and we're looking to find the percent of increase in the number of students. All right, starting with our proportion, we need to first figure out the amount that it changed by. So we're going to take our new value, which would be this year, 670, minus what it had last year, which is the starting value, and we figure out that it changed by 38 students. So I'm just going to label this as the amount of change. This is not our percent. This is just the number of students that it went up by. Okay? So now we're going to use that in our proportion on top. So the change was 38. Next we need to know what was the original amount. Well, last year would be our original. That's where it started, right? So we're looking at 632 students as our starting amount. So what we're really trying to find out here is what percent of 632 is 38. And so I'm just going to use my proportion, cross multiply here to figure out what we get for our answer, and x equals, I see it says 6.01265, kind of keeps going here. So I'm going to round it to the nearest whole number on this one. Let's say this is a 6%. Now we need to say if it's an increase or a decrease. Well, we went from 632 to 670, so that's a 6% increase in the number of students. All right, second example. It says, last week you finished level 2 of a video game in 32 minutes. Today you finished your level in 28 minutes. What is your percent of change? All right, so first things first, we need to find the amount of change. Last week it was 32, this week it was 28. So we're going to subtract to figure out how much it went up by, or sorry, how much it went down by in this one. So this one was a 4-minute decrease, right, from 32 to 28. So that's the amount of decrease, or the amount of change. All right, so that's going to be the top of our proportion. That's our part. Out of, we want to know what was our original amount, or our starting value. Well, we always start with what came first in time. So that would be last week. That would be where we started. So it's 4 out of 32. And we're going to set that equal to x out of 100. And once again, let's use cross multiplication to solve our proportion. And we get an answer of 12.5%. And then finally, we need to make sure that anytime we're working with percent increase or percent decrease, that we put that label on there so that we know if it went up or if it went down. So if it was 32 minutes last week and 28 minutes this week, the percent of change would be a 12.5% decrease. And we're done with that one. The table shows the number of hours you spent online last weekend. What is the percent of change in our online time from Saturday to Sunday. All right, why don't you pause the video, try this one on your own, and see what you come up with. Come on back when you're all set. All right, our first step is to figure out how much it changed by. So if it started at 2 and it went up to 4.5, then we want to know what was that amount of change. 4.5 minus 2 gives us an amount of change of 2.5. That's going to be the top of our proportion. Okay? The next thing I need to decide is, what is my original amount, or my starting value? Well, we want to know the change from Saturday to Sunday, so Saturday is going to be my starting amount. That was our kind of baseline, our original. And so now we're trying to figure out what percent is 2.5 out of 2. And so I will use cross multiplication here. 2.5 times 100 divided by 2. And I see that it is 125%. Now I have to decide, is that a percent increase or decrease? Well, Saturday we spent 2 hours online. Sunday we spent 4.5. Well, that's a percent increase. It went up 125% from Saturday to Sunday. All right, this one's a little different. This one just says 8 meters increased by 25%. And what we want to do is we want to figure out what is the new amount. All right, so first we need to figure out, well, what is 25% of that 8 meters? So in this case, we know our percent of change. It's 25%, and percents are always out of 100. So we've got 25% out of 100%. And now the 8 meters, is that our change or is that our original? That is our original amount. Okay, so we need to first figure out how much did it go up by? What was the amount of change? All right, when I solve this, do 25 times 8 divided by 100, I get an answer of 2. That's the amount that it changed by, right? Let me just get this written down here. But our question didn't ask how much did it change by. It asked, what's the new amount? So if we started at 8 and we increased it by 25%, which is increasing it by 2, then we have to take our original amount and add on the amount that it increased by. So 8 plus 2 will give me 10. Our new amount is 10. So if 8 meters is increased by 25%, that leaves us with an answer of 10. Let's try one more like that. This one says 75 students decreased by 80%, and it wants us to use a proportion to find the new amount. All right, so we know our percent of change is 80%, and the 75 students is our starting value. That's our original amount. So we want to know first, what is 80% of 75, and then we need to figure out our new amount once we take that off of our starting one. So 75 times 80 divided by 100 gives us an answer of 60. So this is the amount that it changed by. I'm just going to get that labeled here too so we know what each of our numbers represents. Okay, so if we started with 75 students and we decreased it by 80%, that means it went down by 80%. And we figured out 80% is 60 students. So we have 75 minus the amount it went down by, leaves us with our total students, which is 15 students. All right, that's our new amount. Please be sure to check in with your teacher if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.